Thank you, everybody. So in this meeting, we'll start by having all the new interns give a 3-minute speech on their reaction to the American Creed documentary, which everyone should have watched.
I'm Ethan. I'm a senior at Interlake High School. And so I think to start off, I'd just like to say that I really enjoyed watching the documentary. It was really eye-opening to see how so many people from so many different demographics and ethnic backgrounds, they all seem to share this common struggle of finding their identity in today's society. And I guess capturing the idea of what being a citizen means for them. And then, for instance, there were I think they were former coal miners, and now the industry is kind of out of business, so they're really struggling to find what to do with their lives in order to sustain their families economically. And they're also the former sharecropping families who, now that they're free to do whatever they choose, they're also struggling to, I guess, find their identity. And it was also interesting to me, when I saw how many people felt disconnected from the idea of the American dream, whether it be because of socioeconomic reasons or for whatever reasons that were impacting their daily lives. And I guess the major takeaway I had from the documentary was the scene with, I think it was Savannah Pham. She was one of the students at the seminar at Stanford. And one thing she said when she was talking about her family background was when she said her parents only wanted her to learn English and adopt I guess American practices and completely disregard their her heritage or her culture. And so I guess the major takeaway from that was although it's crucial that we as Americans buy into this ideal of the American creed and do whatever we can to pursue these sets of ideals, it's also important to remember who you are as an individual and your family ties. As myself as a Chinese American, even though I live in a predominantly English society, I still try to speak Chinese. I still try to give back to the people who are similar to me, right? And so it's important to remember that identity and not just cast it aside and conform into our reality of being American. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Caleb. I'm a junior at Interlake.
Junior? You're a senior.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm a senior at Interlake. Sorry, it's only been a couple of weeks, but
No.
So when I first watched the documentary, I was honestly surprised by the diversity of the people who they invited to speak. But I think that's how it should have been. I noticed that at the core of the documentary was the idea of immigration and the American dream, and everyone who spoke had their own takes and beliefs on immigration and their own stories. And I think as first generation and second generation immigrants, a lot of us could relate to and are familiar with this concept of the American dream. So maybe it was the reason our parents came to the US, maybe it's the reason us ourselves came to the US, but what this documentary really dove into was how the American dream in foreign countries and as citizens of other countries, it's sort of in a cloud where we don't realize until too late the obstacles and hindrances to achieving our American dream. And whether we're Asian or Black or Latino or even white, we Americans or immigrants to America share this common struggle and obstacles of say inherent discrimination and racism. So what I realized from this is that achieving the American dream isn't something that the majority of immigrants get to do. It's kind of in the minority because there are insurmountable walls. So say you're right here, and then the American dream is right here, and there's a wall say this high, and only a few are lucky to cross it. So the question becomes, how do we as immigrants and sort of you could call us activists in a way. How do we sort of break down this wall, or how do we make it shorter? I noticed in the baseball example, I forgot the guy's last name, but his first name was Joe. Joe was talking about how in his community, he created this baseball team to unite the Hispanic and white population because there was a lot of conflict, and like other races too, into this common goal of like winning as a baseball team. And because they shared this common goal, they were able to get along faster. But if we take this as a metaphor for the United States as a whole, the question becomes, what is our common goal, right? The United States is so diverse because there's a lot of us here are Asian, there's Black communities, Latino communities. So it's hard to determine one common goal because we don't all share the collective experience of being Americans. A lot of us face our own individual struggles or the struggles within our community. As an Asian American living in Bellevue, I feel lucky because, I came here when I was 7 and I am an immigrant, but Bellevue and Issaquah and Redmond, this area has such a huge Asian population that I honestly don't feel left out. I feel like I belong here, and there's groups like the Pathways Initiative where we fight to make our voices heard and let other people from our community have their voices heard. But I think it's also a struggle for a lot of non-Asian immigrants because the two strongest communities here are Asian and white. There's not a lot of Latino or Black communities. And as a member of the American Immigration Forums, I think the question becomes like, how do we work as Asians and Indian to, well, we are Asian and Indian, but like, we don't, so like, how do we work to involve the other communities and hear their stories and understand what they are feeling about immigration? So this documentary as a whole, I don't think it answered a lot of questions, but it did raise a lot of questions, and I think in the end that's more important. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pranay, and I'm a senior at Interlake High School. And when I first looked at the time length for the documentary, I thought, wow, this is a long documentary. Like, what could they talk about for an hour and a half? But like, as I watched it more and more, I kind of understood that the topic was so complex and there's so many questions to be answered. And to a certain extent, every case for an immigrant is different, that even 1.5 hours seemed to go by pretty quick in the type of information it gave me. So like a few of the questions that I got from the documentary are kind of stuff that I've been dealing with myself as a member of an immigrant family, and is maybe something I don't notice every day, but it's these questions are stuff that from time to time I still have to deal with in my own life. So one question that I kind of got from the documentary is how do we define ourselves as American even though we're immigrants? So for example, if somebody asked me what race I was, I would say Indian, yet deep down I don't consider myself fully Indian. I consider myself American, as I was born in America. My family's lived in America for over 17 years, and it's kind of this struggle between, and in my own life, it's kind of the struggle between what I want to be. I want to be an American, but I don't want to leave behind my old culture, and I also want to have this American creed, but also this ethnic culture where I'm from, and I kind of want to balance those two without being considered less American or less Indian. And there's also this question that kind of was implied in the documentary, which was, what is the American dream, and and how the American dream unites us. And I think that I kind of had questions about was that the American dream is so different for so many people. For example, for many immigrants, it's escaping persecution in their country. For immigrants maybe like my family who wasn't personally persecuted, but they wanted a better life for their kids, or they wanted a better future, even though the future in their home country wasn't looking too bleak. So it's kind of this idea of, even though the American dream could be completely different, there's still something that unites every person. And Caleb was kind of talking about this when he talked about the diversity in the video. So even no matter the situation or no matter the race or no matter the circumstances, there's always this underlining conflict that an immigrant has to face, which is being brave in a new country and accepting that who they are in their homeland may be lost a little bit when coming to this new country and trying to adapt in a place that they're unfamiliar with. So these questions were kind of more interesting to me, I thought, because like Caleb said, we're part of American Immigration Forums, and last year we even held an event centered around the American dream and what that means to different immigrants, because it's such a diverse topic which could have so many applications to so many different people. And kind of what I got overall is that there's this that the American dream is meant to unite us, even though it may not be meant to unite us personally. It is something that's universal to a certain extent. We all feel that as immigrants, America offers us a land of opportunity, and we'll do whatever we can to try to take advantage of this opportunity. And something that I kind of relented, but it also maybe helped me better understand why I was a part of American Immigration Forums and why I want to get involved in the Pathways Initiative, was kind of this thing of though America has opportunity, many people feel this identity crisis. They kind of feel like they're leaving behind a culture, but they're also not really gaining a culture from coming to America. And that's kind of something that I feel needs to be more talked about, and is something that's important. So for example, I think Julio Diaz was one of the people in the documentary, and as an immigrant, he left his home country. He didn't really know English, so he kind of felt like an outsider in America, but he also felt like an outsider to his own country, kind of abandoning them. And this is something that I don't really think about personally, because I was born in the U.S., so I kind of feel like I have a balance. But there are many people in my life, like my sister who was born in India and she came when she was 8, or even Caleb, who I see every day at school, but I don't even think about the fact that he wasn't born, or he didn't live in America for a long time. So it's kind of this thing where, though we may not see it, it's something that exists and might weigh on a lot of people's mind, and it's something we need to talk about. Yeah, so that's where I got. Also, can somebody open the front door, because somebody's outside.
Alex, whenever you're ready.
All right.
Take your time.
Very good.
Okay, hello, my name is Alex. I'm a sophomore at Interlake, and I'm going to be sharing my reaction to the American Creed documentary. So, I guess what really struck me was it kind of reminded me of what the Constitution of the United States was, what it was founded on in 1789. There weren't any political parties back then. George Washington was an independent, but quickly dissension grew between the political leaders of the nation. First, between the Federalists, who believed in a strong centralized government, and the Democratic Republicans, who believed in the power of states. So, I guess eventually the Democratic Republican Party, they grew to be the dominant party, but then dissension broke off between them, especially within the issue of slavery. So that brought the eventual rift between a Democratic Party and a Republican Party today. And then, I guess in today's world, these parties can never agree. So if you go to gun laws, even with all the recent shootings, no party can learn to compromise. How about immigration laws or economic taxation? The list goes on and on about what the parties disagree with, and therefore not much has changed in the last decade. And then I guess what this documentary, my major takeaway is, what if we stopped focusing on our differences and started focusing on our similarities? We could probably get a lot more done. one of the examples that really struck me was Joe Maddon of the Chicago Cubs. They won their first World Series in the year 2016. And then one of the things he did was he brought all the immigrants and the residents of Chicago together during a local election. And this is the team that just won the World Series. So he definitely could have been just relaxing, and he probably didn't really need to, why did he need to do more? But I guess he brought the citizens together because he realized like they all shared a commonality between the residents and immigrants of Chicago. And diverse as they may be, they all believe in the American dream. And then there's another example, actually based in Seattle, by Eric Liu. Okay. So basically, he brought a lot of community organizers together, specifically the liberal MoveOn.org and the conservative Tea Party Patriots. Okay, so I guess one of the two major takeaways. First of all, the guy who's organizing these organizations, he's an Asian American. But then he's seen as a foreigner, and due to implicit bias tests conducted by Harvard. Due to implicit bias tests conducted by Harvard, Americans, even Asian Americans, tend to see the term Asian American as being more foreign than like normal European American. But this is so important because as seen as foreigners, we need to increase our involvement, and Eric Liu is a great example of
Why don't
that.
you slow down and just calm down for a second and focus, and then you can do that. And that goes to everyone in the room.
All right. Okay, so also, and another takeaway is you have two opposing organizations, but they were actually able to find common ground. And I guess what it shows is that if we listen to each other rather than argue, we can accomplish a lot more. And then additional example outside of the documentary was there was this Japanese debater. She was a former Californian champion in speech and debate. And then when I listened to an interview of her in a podcast, one thing that really struck me was how she explained that there are too many people that want to prove their side of the story, and there's too little truth seekers, like those that try to see multiple perspectives to come up with an ultimate belief. And then debate, in a sense, is not just about proving your belief, but you need to accommodate for both perspectives. And I think this is important because to the discussion of American values, because it is important that we learn to find empathies and views that we disagree with, especially in the political world, because being able to find empathy, I guess our philosophy as to especially in politics, like we kind of see like two parties as competing each other for like domination of power, when we could be seeing each other as a team striving to achieve this same goal, and that is success in America. So to conclude, here's a quote by Mary Angelou: "We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike." So even if we have different beliefs, we all believe in the American dream: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I guess nowadays property, because slavery is illegal. And so that's my speech.
Hey, my name's Eric Ma. I'm a freshman at Interlake High School. And then, so, what is the American Creed? Well, as we all saw in the documentary, they're like Americans' core values, such as freedom, unlimited opportunity, and individualism. And this documentary spends a great deal of time focusing on our beliefs, such as it doesn't matter where you are from, rather than where you are going, as well as if you work hard, and an example as achieving higher education or serving our country, then you have unlimited opportunities available for you. And then these factors are all prominent reasons for why people want to come to America. But to reach this amazing sounding American dream where, immigrants came with no money and no understanding of English to try to achieve, for the hope of discovering new opportunities for themselves and others. But to reach this amazing sounding American dream, they had to risk basically everything that they had and bear discrimination when they arrived. Realistically speaking, not everyone gets to live their American dream. And while the principal Lindbergh Elementary School inside the documentary did get to achieve her dream of being an educator, most of the other speakers in the documentary had to express all of the hardships that they overcame within their lifetime when they immigrated. I personally was born in America, but nevertheless, as a child, I had some struggles with learning English, primarily because I was brought up usually by my grandparents because my parents had to work. And then my parents did not have the best English, so they didn't help me a whole lot in learning English as well. So the story about the elementary students at Lindbergh Elementary, as well as the award-winning Dominican-American writer Diaz, whatever, who immigrated at the age of 6 without knowing any English, was really relatable to me and my childhood struggles. Junot Diaz's story particularly inspired me in the sense that you should not give up when obstacles appear along your journey to your goal, in the sense that when he was encountered by a language barrier, he studied by going to the library and reading every day until he could communicate and eventually became quite a successful writer. And then in the end, the American Creed documentary really gave me insight on how others who face similar struggles as me. And then even more, it portrays what it means to be American and all the hard work that that you have to do to become a citizen of the country back then. And as a whole, this documentary reminds us that the ideas of the American Creed are extremely crucial in making America the country of freedom and endless opportunity that it aspires to be. Thank you.
Don't worry. All right. Okay. So my name is Melissa, and I'm a freshman at the Overlake School. So what is the American Creed? The American Creed is an idea that revolves around the question of what makes America America. So what does it mean to be an American citizen? There are certain core values that all Americans hold dear. Some examples are liberty, equality, and justice. I would like to start by sharing a quote from the American Creed documentary. A woman said that, "The one thing that always attracted people to the United States of America was this idea that it didn't matter where you came from, it mattered where you're going. For many, America is a place where people from ordinary families can do extraordinary things. In this day and age, many people are worried about our country, and as it seemingly breaks apart. We seem so intent on pointing out our differences that we forget how similar we all are. As Americans, we are bonded by our ideals. Respect and trust are the foundations of America as we know it. We pride ourselves on being a diverse country with boundless opportunities for all. We aspire to make our country a better place, yet we cannot put aside our differences long enough to work together. A team cannot exist without respect for one another and without trusting each other. It is evident right now that our country is not equal and justice is not served. Minorities are discriminated against, and immigrants are pushed out of the United States. It is ironic to think that many of the people that are anti-immigrants are a part of families that immigrated to America only a few generations ago. They too were discriminated against and had to work hard to be where they are now. Yet these people so easily forget where they came from. They forget that they too went through the same process to fight for acceptance. America is a country of immigrants. Although the United States is a place of opportunities and looking to the future, we must never forget where we came from. If we can look beyond our differences and take a deeper glimpse at our shared identity as Americans, we can work to achieve the level of equality and justice that we all want for America. A place where, instead of pushing each other down, we can help each other up. Because in the end, it's not about you or me, it's about us. Thank you.
My name is Liana Wu. I'm a senior at Newport High School. And what I found from this documentary was that America was founded on immigrants. We're not tied by blood, ethnic, or religion. We pretty much have almost nothing in connection other than our shared connection of aspiration to a common goal. And that the stories that remind us really unite us and define us. So the documentary was a good opportunity for me to use my history skills and language arts skills because it relates back to the Great Gatsby, where it defines the American dream, and then it also goes back into the sedition and alien acts of the 17th century, which has gone all the way for 4 centuries, or the last decade has been on immigration and how they're illegal and should we allow them in, and if we should base them as criminals. So then what really stood out for me was the Hazleton one, where regardless of where was one going or his background, they could still find opportunity to reach their pathway. It initiated what I originally thought, that it always begins with the kids, the younger generation. Because when kids are grouped up with other kids, they have this kind of innocence that allows them to transpire over barriers that grown-ups usually look at. Because when we put kids together, they don't see the divisions that lie between them, the race, the religion, the age gap. They just find the person inside the other person, who they truly are. And then when we grow up, we get to see how different we really are. But I think it just doesn't show us how important it is that we establish that the younger generation can find the similarities before they find the differences between us. And then we also have an identity crisis where, as in my application, I said Asian Americans were like bananas. We're yellow on the outside, but we're white on the inside. So we're not completely Asians, but we're not also completely Americans. But if we go to either side, we're not really viewed as one of the group. We're kind of there's a bit of a bias. Asians are supposed to be smart, but you're Americans, so you're a bit white. You eat hamburgers and hot dogs and all that junk food. But that's why it's so important to establish that Asian Americans are a community and that we have an important role to play in our society of what we think, what we believe, and to establish our prominence inside where we live. Thank you.
I'm Yushi, and I'm a senior at Bellevue High School. And first of all, I want to say that I am a Chinese Canadian, so I don't really know how I will but I'm still gonna use second person pronoun because it's like easier to say. Okay, so I was once a Chinese citizen, and like from where I was born, people I was born in Shanghai, and everyone who was not from Shanghai, who lived in the city, they were viewed as outsiders, and I kind of felt I felt really proud of how I was born there. So I thought after I moved to America, I just thought I was more open-minded to the idea of people who are from the outside. It's not when I'm put into these shoes, I just thought they all have their hardships, and they have a reason for why they came here. And now, as a high school senior, I'm indeed skeptical of how real the American dream really is. Just because I'm Chinese, I feel disadvantaged for almost every popular major that I happen to be interested in. I don't think everyone has a chance for the American dream, but the top tier of the social class definitely has a better chance to reach this dream, so the opportunity aren't equal after all, since they all have the routes of donating money and, of course, greatest test prep and college counseling. It is just like an exponential graph I can picture. Like the left side has like the little girl compared to the enormous girl on the right side, which is in terms of the social class. Well, speaking of the disadvantaged ethnic group, I agree somewhat to the line mentioned in the documentary by an African American woman that the way to counteract discrimination is education. Well, we all know that isn't true for Asian Americans because our discrimination is based upon our education. When I think about what American dream really means to me, I think of it as deceitful. I don't need a notion to motivate me forward or anything. Also, it is not a good justification for people who do well in life just because you say that they have the American dream in their mind. Well, I would like to focus more on the negative aspects of the American dream on the immigrants. At this Model United Nations conference I went a couple months ago, we were talking about sex trafficking in Southeast Asia, and they were using this concept of American dream to lure victims into America just because they are ignorant and lacks technology and information about what's actually on this land. They just know it's a land of opportunities and dreams. Well, the consequence is usually that they're smuggled abroad to the U.S. as illegal residents and blackmailed by the traffickers into doing more labor against their will. In this aspect, American dream is just a false concept that does more harm than good. It makes people disillusioned, especially for people who lack resources and opportunities. At the end, I want to just say that this dream isn't just for Americans, but of everyone on this land and people outside this land who are just pondering upon this concept. Well, as long as we believe in our goals, no matter short or long term, we can go from 0 to 1, and anything after that, from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, will be much smoother. Thank you.
Alright, so I'm Aaron. I'm a 10th grader at Newport. So just to start off, I really enjoyed watching the American Creed video. It really gave me insight on like what it means to be like an immigrant in America and like this commonality of seeking the American dream that we all have. And yeah, so this important part that I thought about as I was watching the American Creed documentary was where like how like they discussed that like before people even like America was established, people from Europe came here, moved to the United States seeking liberty, increased happiness, and for the future as what we call the American dream. And like many came for like economic concerns, others sought to escape discrimination, suppression, and these were all different reasons. But like these were all the part of the American dream, but they were all still different like aspects of what it meant to be the American dream. And they all saw a place like that they thought was full of opportunities and aspirations and like a place of freedom. And like for many, this is like a foundation for like what we all think of like of the American values. And like this is also true for I think like many other citizens in other countries that have not even came to America. They also think America is like a place full of opportunities and like where they can like reach like various goals that they aspire to. But however, like even though we are in America to this day, we can still see that like many of the marginalized minority, like be it like race or religion or sex, are discriminated and ignored and like have a hard time finding their identity in America and like seeking their American dream. And like they often do not have an equal voice in a country that we like love to say is full of like opportunity and like democratic. And in understanding this, I think it's important to understand that like as American, like even those American like that we think as ideal American citizen, those who deviate from what we believe as the ideal American citizen are like often embody like still a very vital piece of what it means to be like the American citizen and the American people. And they also deserve to have like a voice and equal opportunities for civic engagement to truly like reflect America as a people for everybody, because many do not even find like civic engagement and like their American dream and like what it means to be American like accessible. And like I think a good metaphor like Joe Madden provided was this example of a sports team where he said that like we're all teammates, all from different origins, but we all unite to reach a common goal to win the championship rather than let us like our differences like separate us. And I think American Creed is important in this aspect because it's about collectivizing the American people. Like even though individualism has like permeated our ideals as American and thinking like being the individual is most important in America, and which has like split our nation apart because of our different beliefs and political ideals, it's important to realize that we as Americans all came here like seeking the same type of freedom and liberty and like the American dream that we're all predicated on.
Okay, so my name is Richard and I'm a 10th grader at Newport. So the American Creed video introduces the question of what does it mean to be an American? So this question helps us unite America during these challenging times in society, like gender differences in the LGBT community, racial differences where like blacks and Hispanics are being oppressed, and educational differences. By asking this question, we can all remember things that unite us instead of the things that differentiate us and create conflict. So many of us are like results of immigration to the U.S. for like financial purposes or educational or escaping discrimination. And we all share these common American values of liberty, freedom, and yeah. Right now, like during wars, we often feel this sense of like patriotism and like nationalism, but in everyday life, we often shy away from this feeling. So we need to like get this feeling to occur whenever, so a prime example was Joe Madden, who with his sports team he integrated people of all of the different races, and they all had a common goal of winning and reaching the championship. And by doing this, they began to forget their differences and try to reach their common goal and begin to trust each other and find out that these people of different races are actually good people. A major problem in America right now is how like illegal immigrants are crossing the borders, and then the government has been like wanting to detain them or deport them. But like I believe that we should just allow them to become legal U.S. citizens because they all want to be part of the U.S. and share our freedom and equality, and that the U.S. provides for us. But why should we just take those away from them and just keep them for us? That's like kind of selfish, yeah. Something that I see in society right now, like often in our schools and stuff, there's this kind of like gap between our like friend groups, like Asians, and some are like just like Hispanic groups, and they don't really communicate with each other much. And I feel like this is a big problem because we all share these American values, and why should we just like become so separated from each other? And recently, during my history class, I heard of this thing where like some dude in Washington took some DNA tests, and he found out that he was like 4% black, but like he's been like American his whole life, and then he just like he's a worker, and then he signs up for some special thing for minority people, so he gets like these extra rights. But like why should we, like he already has his American dream, and then why should he just try to seek for even more, and like even if he's only 4% black? Yeah, I feel like that's pretty an important.
Excuse me, just give me 30 seconds. I just wanted to talk a little bit. You guys, obviously prepared very much. I just wanted to particularly person this guy. You shouldn't just read your thing like this, you should probably, I ever learned some public speaking training in some class. You should scan the audience from one side to other side slowly, and go back. You cannot just put your eye on your things. Just also, you most of the time you just put your hand like this. You also, I see some people, not just people, because just I think he is a good speaker. You should watch him how he speaks. So then learn a little bit. I just want to say this. Okay.
Thank you for your input, sir. Yeah, when you're speaking, you generally try to scan the audience. I know not all of you guys have the script memorized, but you know, if every once in a while you could look around, that would be great.
Okay, so my name's Kevin. I'm a sophomore at Inglemoor High School. So after I watched the American Creed video, I really connected to the, is it like Dominican Republican author, Julio Diaz. Similar to him, I also moved to the United States like at the age of 13, only 2 years ago. And when I first came here, I wasn't really familiar with like the language, nor just like the people here. I was pretty alone. My first year in junior high, I remember like I was really shy. I didn't talk to many people. Mostly I just stayed to myself. And now I think about it, like my parents really helped me along the way with my English development and just getting used to this country. My mom will often drag me to like many activities, like church activities. Like a lot of, she will sign me up for a lot of events for me to just really get to know the people around here. And so, so my parents envisioned me to move here in search of a better education on this land full of opportunities. Okay. The overcurring theme in this documentary is that it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters where you're going to go. And coming to America, like searching for a better future, really had me thinking about like why did I choose to come here. Like in China, I was in a pretty good school, but still my parents wanted me to come to this land of freedom and where like everyone, no matter of your ability, as long as you work hard enough, you have the opportunity to like explore yourself and create your own American dream. Yeah, to live on this land of like free of judgment, having your own right of speech and do whatever you want, and be able to live out the life as you wish, makes America America. So the land of free is also was it like stated in the national anthem or something? Okay. One of my favorite scenes in this documentary is where like the elementary teacher asked the kid like, what does it mean to be American? Like, what is America? And most of the kid answered like liberty, freedom, access to education, being to live out your life as you want. And I feel like that is really important, and also probably the most important reason why my parents brought me here. They want me to live out my life and not really like being just in China. Life was pretty concentrated. People were constantly competing, and it was really tough. And I feel like coming to America, I really found what I want to be, and seeing like what everyone else wanted to be. Like I know a lot of people that like have different passions, wanting to pursue like different careers. And my second favorite part from this documentary is the guy in Seattle where like he holds this like a stand and like make straight people just like swear the oath of like when immigrants transform into like U.S. citizens. And I feel like that really got me thinking of what does it mean to be an American. To be an American means that like as we have a lot of conflicts in this country today, like a lot of conflicts people have mentioned before, I feel like working to that common goal really brings people together in America, and it's what makes things done. Sorry. Okay.
Angela Lee. I'm a sophomore at Interlake High School. And I thought what was really interesting in the video is at the beginning there was a group who said that there was a lot of problems with the American dream. That is, it's so much based on luck instead of like simply hard work, which is what we're often told that the American dream is based on. That it's just a set of ideals where freedom includes like opportunities of success, upward social mobility for families, and that is all achieved through like hard work. But simply hard work doesn't always give you what you want or give you the success that you try to achieve. And I think what draws all these immigrants to America is not necessarily these set of ideals, but also like more of the possibility to achieve your dreams rather than being absolute that you that this is like a land of opportunities, which it is, but also like with more and more people moving to America, it's also becoming a lot more competitive, and we've built up so many like barriers for each other to try to. We've built up all these barriers, and we try to help ourselves to succeed more. But focusing on being on what brings us together is a better common goal, because we all have the common goal of trying to like create a better society for future generations, or trying to achieve our own dreams. However, your American dream can also change throughout your lifetime of being an American. And with these barriers of discrimination and like income inequalities and sexism, we try to discourage others because opportunities is very scarce and very rare, and we each try to compete for that. However, because of all this competitiveness, we set each other apart, and we focus on our own individuality and our own goals, which we should all be coming together to reach a common goal. And so to create equal opportunities, it's not exactly possible without equal access to education, which is really what the video highlights. So I think that education is the main, access to education is like what we should work towards more as to create that American dream more possible for future generations, and to like work towards that work towards our own dreams and making a better society for future generations.
Alright, my name is George Wong, and like I'm from Interlake High School. So the American creed is basically freedom. People from outside America can come to America, and we think that they usually have the ability to do whatever they want or follow their dreams. Like, it doesn't matter if you're immigrant, black, white, Mexican, whatever. But like, is that really true though? Because we all know that there's a lot of people that are better off and have greater chance of achieving their dreams than others. But does that necessarily mean that America is just bad, or is there just bad people? No, it's more like, I feel like it's more like misunderstanding America, because I can tell you a lot of our energy and effort in American politics is based on like conservatives versus the liberals. I can tell you a lot of our problems, liberal issues with conservatives, may be a little bit unbased, because I moved from Arkansas in 6th grade. I can tell you, it's not good over there. Like, there are some towns that don't have schools. We were hell excited when we got one Walmart over there, and we're losing people. Like, last time I checked, we were losing people in that town that came from. And Little Rock, not even as big as Bellevue downtown, was the capital of Arkansas. And like, it's not big. But yeah, so I just think that a lot of our energy is not spent wisely because we're trying to debate each other. Like, it's not like Arkansas is like completely the victim of anything. They have problems too, like gay marriage. Everyone didn't want it in Arkansas either. People thought Barack Obama wanted to like make everyone a Muslim and give them like tattoos. Like, that's what I heard. And I think as long as we just don't understand each other because we're not exposed to each other like liberals and conservatives, we don't really we don't relate. We don't know what it's like for the other person. So we just need to be more objective, in my opinion, and that will go a long way to take a lot of the focus off fighting each other and to make progress forward and to make it easier for people to achieve their dreams and purpose and achieve great things. Let's go.
I didn't time my speech, so let's see how long I could drag this out. Okay, so I'm Simon. I'm from Interlake High School. I'm a junior this year. And from what I've heard so far, there have been a lot of positives, like about how how the American dream is this kind of like paragon in the global community that everyone wants to come to America because they feel like they can achieve opportunity. But I also think that although America has accomplished great things, there's this ugly side of history that we often don't look to, and I think it's very important for us to look towards that as well. Because, people mentioned this earlier too, but not everyone has the same opportunity in America. Like, structurally, America does favor white people, straight cisgender men, rich people. So there's one part in the video, in the American Creed documentary that really stood out to me, and that was the part with the Native American teacher talking about what America meant to her. And I think for Natives, a group frequently forgotten and made invisibilized by America, and in fact, I don't think anyone has mentioned Native Americans as a demographic group in our discussion so far. Natives have a super different story than the rest of America, right? And basically, I think I remember the teacher talking about how there needs to be a greater kind of discussion about individual experiences and histories about different demographic groups in America, and the past it brings together. I think that's extremely important because even with all the great things that America has today, we still sometimes forget that that cruel things had to have happened to kind of build our country up to this point. And for things for example, I want to talk about racism today for all people of color, right? For example, African Americans, they face segregation in the military-industrial complex with police brutality. Natives right now were killed in genocide in our history, and their land is still dispossessed today. And also, as for Asian Americans, we face obstacles in our lives, such as the model minority myth, and even if you think about our history, one of the first specifically targeted immigration restrictions for a certain group of people, that was the Chinese Exclusion Act, and Chinese people died on railroads trying to build this country up through labor strikes and everything. So structurally, we do see that different demographic groups, especially people of color, have faced certain struggles, and I think that these fall, and I think as a result, there have been a lot of false stereotypes as well created in our country. I think these exist in our country because we don't take the time to learn about the history of other people, for example, of other different races in this case. In our history, and our country is diverse, and as much as things like justice, liberty, equality are important to us all, we can't forget that different demographical groups also experience these concepts different way. Justice means something different to an African American who is constantly discriminated against in courts and face police brutality. Equality means something different for Native Americans who always have whose land is always and forever going to be dispossessed, and they don't actually achieve or have access to the same amount of rights as white people do in this country, and especially liberty for Asian Americans. I think we can all speak to the fact that we've seen less representation of who we want to be in culture, especially in society, especially in things like media portrayal and everything, and especially with ideas like the model minority myth are kind of also place these kind of invisibilized barriers on us that we don't really think about in our everyday life. So I think that if we all take time to not just educate ourselves, but really to listen to each other's experiences throughout history, and especially the more ugly sides of America, I think that's the only way we can come together and actually create empathy in which we can help move our country forward together, and make this country even stronger. Thank you.
My name is Wuhan, and I'm a junior at Interlake High School. So first of all, kind of just on a side comment, and while watching the documentary, I found it personally very interesting how students of our generation can connect with each other on so many levels, specifically immigrants. Like, for example, the documentary began with the students sitting in a circle at Stanford University and discussing their thoughts on their families and their backgrounds. So the girl who first speaks described the difficult journey her father went through coming to the United States with no money in his pockets. And I believe that this background story is very applicable to many of us in this room. Like, my parents always tell me about how they had to start their lives over when coming to the United States, and how all of their earnings and lifestyle choices were made by themselves with no help. However, it definitely did come to good results, as they are pretty happy with their lifestyle and the opportunities that America provided for them. So, like, back to the main ideas of the documentary. In the beginning, the former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice stated that America has currently lost sight of many shared ideas like the access to education, dedication to service, bridging gaps between political groups, raising communities through the efforts of individuals, etc. So I believe that to some extent, what she said is true and applicable to our modern society, specifically because of social and political views that separate and polarize us on important issues such as racial and gender equality or safety and defense in the United States. So these groups or factions have been present for such a long time that it is quite peculiar to see how they are still so deeply rooted in society. And these concerns have been present since the development of the Constitution. So around a week ago, we read Federalist Number 10 in our government class, which is part of the 85 Federalist Papers, which served to promote the ratification of the Constitution. So in this essay, James Madison wrote that factions were the main cause and problem of chaos and in any extreme case, tyranny. Although factions aren't caused by poverty now, Federalist Number 10 truly does define many of the prevalent issues we see in modern society. So James Madison was pretty spot on about how factions aren't preventable, but their effects can be controlled. However, we can see that the extreme effects have not been moderated very well, shown by violent riots and myriads of arrests and lack of government control. Thus, I personally believe that one of the biggest problems in the divisions of people and decline in the American creed is because of social and polarized political views. Some of these issues can be resolved by the people, but the government should take the lead role in solving such critical problems in the United States. And next, I believe that the role of education is crucial in promoting the American creed. It was very interesting to see the divisions in Hazleton because of race, stereotypes, and specific beliefs. As in places that I have lived, such as Bellevue, we live in such a small and narrow bubble that we aren't really ever exposed to like large cities with high crime rates and extremes like on the political spectrum. And personally, racism and sexism that I have faced with is quite minimal compared to others in less privileged areas. And people in Hazleton were seen to target immigrants, specifically those of Hispanic backgrounds. And Kennedy explained that many of these beliefs stem from misinformation. So I believe that this is very true, as we are constantly misinformed by society, and even those of upper statuses like government officials. And even with professionals, no one can be completely neutral on any topic. For example, with President Donald Trump, many people believe in him and respect his ideas and values just because he is the President of the United States. However, many people in America are opposed to his ideals and values because of how he attacks the beliefs and lifestyles of many, like how large political groups currently feel due to Trump's support of Brett Kavanaugh as a Supreme Court justice. So this misinformation and misrepresentation handed to people can and has easily lead to political altercations. Thus, I believe that education of the correct information and true representation is key to promoting American ideals. So, thus, I believe that one valid solution is education to push out misinformation, misrepresentation, and to truly bring back the fundamental ideals of freedom, liberty, equality, etc. back into our society. But I believe that America is currently already making a pretty valid step towards that, specifically in many projects that the nation is currently investing in. For example, in the documentary, Joe Cubs guy helped bring together cultures in a project to create a situation where kids could come together to go to school, play sports, and thus connect their families as well. So this is already a big step towards making sure that we can come together as one to form a community and develop and adopt our ideas. So I thought that another solution would be have
to have discussions such as Edwin's project, promoting forums and discourse on the topic of American ideals, especially because we don't see much discourse around the issue currently. And these forums can help erase stigma around the discussions of this topic and therefore help us develop ideals in a better society. And finally, I believe that the government should take a greater role on controlling social and political factors through institutions and general protection. In the documentary, I forgot who, but someone mentioned that we need public institutions to help our society and maintain the American creed, which can be implemented through less of a laissez-faire approach by the government. And overall, I liked how realistic the documentary was and how it shined light on what is happening around the nation. And I agree with how, although many people believe in individuality, it is extremely important to recognize the necessity of a community and working together to develop solutions. However, I do believe that the documentary could have spent more time on specific solutions that could be enacted to remove such deep polarization in the country.
Oh, the microphone. Oh.
A junior at Mercer Island High School. So under the current political situation, or even decades ago, people have realized the dilemma that America is kind of growing apart. Our political system is polarized. People start to disapprove the idea of American dream, and minorities are still left out, discriminations are still there. And we have to answer some of the urgent questions that are central to the success of this country, like who are the we in we the people of the United States? What does a citizen mean? And where are we heading as a citizen or as a nation? Which are essentially what this documentary of American Creed is about. So back all the way to the colonial era, besides to seek for wealth or glory, there were also a group of people who came to this distant land in the purpose of building a city upon a hill. And the founders of this country wanted to stand out as an exceptional model, united under a strong sense of unity and code of ethics for the rest of the world. And this is where the American Creed comes in. It's about respect, liberty, equality, democracy, and most importantly, individualism. America is known for its diversity, but not necessarily the integration of cultures. And the reason why we found ourselves kind of splitting into different segments is because we've never been as a whole. And America is a melting pot for cultures, languages, skin tones, religions, and traditions. There are so many individual morals and political ideas clashing together. But this is okay. What we value the most is individuality, and I believe that well-being of individuals contribute the well-being of the community. So all groups don't have to unify together because we are different. But if we strive for the common purpose, the happiness and well-being of each individual, with respect and understanding for others, this will push the nation towards its American dream. However, at the same time, it's also important to always remind ourselves of the responsibilities that share to our family, communities, and ultimately our country. It is in our moral code to help others through hardships and difficulties. And most importantly, the author hoped that our shared American values of the rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness on the basis of individualism and respect can prove more powerful than our differences will take to uphold American democracy.
Andrew, I think you're the last one.
I think Danny Ivania as well.
They did, yeah, they did. Yeah.
Not reaching out there.
Sorry.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrew and I am a senior at Newport. So, I think America is one of the most unique countries in the world. When you walk down the street in China, all you see is black-haired people and like yellow-skinned people. But then in America, it would be weird not to see a white person or a black person when you walk somewhere. So I think this is one of our greatest assets, as we are a country prided in our immigrants and run on
and oftentimes run on immigrants. But it could also be a challenge because we have no racial identity to kind of adhere to. So in the documentary, Condoleezza Rice and David Kennedy defined the American creed as a set of ideals and that really tie Americans together. But unfortunately in the recent, years, America has been kind of pulling apart from each other, as seen in our politics with the recent 2016 election. And overall, it's really questioning what does it mean to be an American. So I believe it's really important to have discussions and discourse over using the American creed as the foundation of what brings us together. So kind of like what Edwin does with his project. And it also kind of addresses the national identity crisis. So as American is moving toward becoming a more minority-majority country where whites are not the majority anymore, what does it mean to be American? And I heard that a lot of people address that it's really important to know where you're going, but I think it's just as important to know where you came from, because our differences in backgrounds and our differences in our childhoods is what gives us different perspectives and different opinions on a magnitude of different issues. And so this also aligns with American Immigration Forum's mission to kind of use civic engagement as a way to, using discussion as a way to, for civic engagement. But although we just focus around immigration, I believe that we should have discussions on all kinds of issues, not just in politics. We can have discussions on technology, on, let's see, what else? I don't know, anything really. But what's important is that discussions kind of brings all of us to a mutual understanding and allows us to kind of see past the surface of who we are and kind of get to know each other on the deeper side. And discussions are ultimately what's going to kind of decide our future, because without discussions, really, we're just individuals with nothing binding us together. Thank you.
So I underestimated how long all you interns would take to give your speeches, but that's a good thing. Thank you all for giving me your thoughts about the American Creed. I'm glad that we went over time and that you guys all had a lot to say. So we don't have time to do a discussion today, but I would like to give any of the old interns a chance if they would like to.
It seems like the girls are a little more skeptical. But I want to say that both of these things are really important, right? Because just believing in something without understanding the issues around it is naivety, but also just describing the problems without offering a viable alternative, that's just cynicism and complaining. So you need to bring these two things together, be able to recognize the problems, but also have an ideal that you drive towards, something that you can work towards and not just complain about. That's what will make things happen. So good job, guys. I really liked what I heard.
I can add one more thing. I absolutely agree with what Sam said. You guys are great. I also heard there's a lot of interest on discussion, dialogue, talk about it, right? That can bring us together. We can come up with, but the more importantly is what I heard, that we can come up with solutions, right? It's just talking, we can talk for 100 years. Solutions. That's why young people, you guys can make things happen. And not just come up with solutions. Hopefully, we will have the opportunities, talk about another thing, to actually do something, to actually have solutions, that you can work on the solutions. And you will have solutions sooner rather than later. So I hope that this internship give us all an opportunity to do something toward a solution. And it comes from you. We're not going to be able to tell you exactly what it is going to be. We'll try the best we can, give you the opportunities, but also welcome you coming up with your ideas, creative, positive ideas. There are a lot of negatives, a lot of concerns, a lot of challenges, but we want to turn that into opportunities and also positive solutions. Remember that. Thank you.
So thank you, Sam and Mr. Lee, for offering your thoughts. And again, good job to all of you guys who spoke. It takes a lot of courage to, stand up and talk to the whole group. Yeah, let's give you guys a round of applause.